OpenClaw has changed my life. I have 8 AI agents running on the server right now. They help me write my scripts, they manage all of the boring admin stuff, and they help me keep up to date with everything that's going on in the AI coding space, because we all know that's moving pretty damn fast. You see, I started with one AI agent assistant, and then I started adding them more as I needed them. And today I'm going to show you exactly how you can too. So by the end of this video, you're going to have your full, complete AI agent team. Sonny here, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I teach you all about the AI space and how to leverage the most powerful tools the right way. So if that sounds good to you, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Now, first things first, if you haven't set up OpenClaw yet, I actually made a full video walking you through how you can set up the entire setup step by step. It's going to be somewhere around this video right now in a pop-out link. The reason why you might want to check that out is because you can get it up and running literally in seconds. Simply head over to hostinger.com/SonnyOpenClaw to get started. And yes, while you're at it, you can use the code Sonny to save some cash. Now for this video, I'm going to assume that you've already got an OpenClaw agent set up. And if so, well done. And by this point, you probably started to experiment it. You've asked it maybe to write some content or a tweet. Whatever your use case is, it's pretty damn powerful. But you might have come into a situation where you've asked it to reply to an email or maybe write some content for you. And all of a sudden, it sounds like ChatGPT wrote it. So naturally, as you should be doing, you teach it and explain it how to speak more like yourself. And the output gets better and better. And this is usually the golden aha moment for so many people, where they realize how powerful OpenClaw can be. But here's the thing. One agent doing every single thing is similar to hiring one person to be your copywriter, your developer, researcher, project manager, and social media person, all of that. You see, every AI agent has something called a context window. You can think of this like a big whiteboard. You can write a lot of things on the whiteboard, but once it's full, you're basically erasing old stuff to fit in the new stuff, or you're simply not remembering the old stuff because the board's too big. So as a result, your agent begins to forget the small details. It makes mistakes and so on. And this is the pain point we're going to solve today by getting you your first AI agent team. This multi-agent setup is something that I believe every single one of you should know about, and every single one of you can actually use today. So we're going to jump into a demo, and I'm going to explain how I basically came into my first situation where I needed another agent. So let's hop over to the desk and build our first agent. Now, if you haven't already got OpenClaw set up, don't worry, you do not need to go ahead and buy a Mac Mini. The first step you want to do is head over to the link in the description over to hostinger.com/SonnyOpenClaw. Once you've done that, you'll land on this page, and this is where you're going to select your VPS plan. What I want you to do is go ahead and select which one you want. Now, I highly recommend KVM2 is more than enough to go ahead and run OpenClaw for most of you out there. So let's go ahead and toggle that and then click on deploy. And it's a super fast deployment. You can see right here, it's a huge saving right now if you go ahead and do the 24-month plan. So in this case, your boy's already done you a favor. If you go ahead and add in the coupon code Sonny and click on apply, you'll get a further 10% off. So you've dropped from $650 down to less than $200, which is less than $8 a month, which is absolute steal. If you head down here, you can actually see you also get a free domain for 1 year with the order. And if you don't want to mess around with any API keys, OpenAI, Claude keys, or anything like that, you can feel free to use their ready-to-use AI credits by simply going ahead and selecting the amount that you want to top up by. They've also got a bunch of other cool options down below, as well as choosing a server location. And once you're done, all you got to do is click on continue, follow the simple walkthrough to go ahead and set up your OpenClaw. If at any moment you feel stuck, there'll be a pop-up around the screen right now with a full tutorial on how to set things up. If you watched the previous tutorial, you would have already had your first agent set up. So here's my agent Neo. In this case, it's the demo version, of course, my main Neo. I'm not going to show you guys that. But in this case, you can see he asks the starting question. So, hey, I just came online. We give him a name and we go ahead and tell him how to act and behave and so forth, right? Now, in this tutorial, I'm actually going to show you a bit more in depth to other tutorials that I've seen online, because I think understanding what's going on under the hood is going to allow you to be much better at using OpenClaw. So in this case, let's just dive into what's happening under the hood so we can understand how multi-users work when we start doing that. First things first, I added something to memory just as a test. Okay, so Neo now has remembered something in his notes. So if we look into the files, what I've done here is I've just SSH'd into the actual server, and we can see we have an OpenClaw folder, and then we click inside, and our workspace, your main agent, this is where he lives. Okay, so in this case, if we see this, we have workspace, and then you've got all of the important files. Now, the ones that you want to pay attention to are, the first thing is identity, right? This is what name we've given it. So in this case, Neo, cool and quirky personal assistant, and you can go ahead and customize it a bit more. Okay, now the next one, so.md. This is what gives it essentially its soul, its personality, how it talks. You can go ahead and explain to Neo, or whatever you decide to call your agent, what you want it to be like, and chances are it'll probably change it in the soul. But if you change it here, it's going to actually have a deeper impact, as opposed to, let's say, if it was saved as a memory and then it's kind of clashing between its soul and memory, if that makes sense. Okay, so we just saved something to memory. So if we look into this, you can see that I actually saved it like so. Now, the way that OpenClaw actually works is not only do you have a memory.md file, but you also have sort of a searchable folder structure. So in this case, if we look over here, it actually saves like date logs. So these are just MD files as well. And you can see on this day, Sonny asked Neo to remember that his YouTube channel is youtube.com/Sonny Sanga. Okay. So you can see here, everything about this agent is inside of its workspace. It's isolated there. Okay. And then at the top, we've got some settings that go a bit deeper. Now what I want to do is I want to create another agent. So there's many ways to do this. We can either literally ask Neo, but you can do that yourself. You can try it out for yourself. I'm going to show you the actual documentation way so you guys can get a chance to play with that. So in this case, if we go to agents here, we scroll down, you can see multi-agent routing. And I really want you guys to get used to docs.openclaw.ai. Use this as like your holy grail for everything OpenClaw, because get to know how it actually works. And I promise you, you'll get a much better success rate than if you just follow tutorials blindly. Okay. So this explains basically what I talked about, the workspace, how everything is stored and saved, including sessions. And then if we go down here, we can actually see the agent helper. Okay. So they have a good quick start guide where you can actually add in 2 different agents, for example, one for coding, one for social. But let's go ahead and just copy this line here. And I'm going to go to my server. So I'm actually SSH'd in right now. If you don't know how to do this, you can literally just tell Telegram the following command. You can say run that command and it would go ahead and do it, right? So Neo will run that for you, or he knows how to add agents, right? So in this case, but I'm just trying to show you in depth. Now I don't want to call mine coding. I want to call mine ink. So in this case, I go ahead and hit enter. And now let's see what happens. So as you can see, OpenClaw spins up. And the first thing is it's going to create a new workspace. So in this case, you saw the first one was for the main agent. Regardless if you call them John, Neo, whatever you decide, it's always going to be just workspace by default. And then the new agents are going to have their own isolated workspace. So in this case, workspace-ink. I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead. And then copy authentication profiles from the main. Yes. And what does that mean? That basically means that I set this up with the ChatGPT API key. This will then mean that the new agent will also use that API key. If you say no, you're going to have to set up another key, which is actually pretty handy if you think about it. You can have separate keys for different agents. That way you could stop things like rate limiting, keep an eye on usage and so forth. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and copy the auth profiles. And then we are going to configure the model. Now, this part is very, very interesting. Okay. So here we can see we've got different model auth providers. Okay. So in this case, we've got OpenAI, Anthropic and so forth. We're going to go with OpenAI. And now I have got my key. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it in. Although I thought that this would have actually done that for me, but in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and paste the key in. I'm going to be using the same key. So I've gone ahead and added in my key, and now it's defaulted to GPT-5.1 codex. We can change that later. Don't worry about that, because right now I wouldn't have it on 5.1. I'd have it on 5.3. And then you can see here, channel status. So when you have a multi-agent workflow, the typical way that you tend to work with it, trust me, I've done both. You talk to your main agent and then they'll delegate to all of your other agents that you have. Or if you really want to get, kind of in depth with things, you can also connect it to channels, right? So in this case, the same as Telegram, Slack, all these things. So in this case, configure chat channels now. We can say no, okay? We're happy to carry on to that. And you can see Agent Inc. is ready. So what does that actually mean, right? So what does it mean by Agent Inc. is ready? So if we actually go and look at the files, we can actually see what's happening under the hood, because often what I'm seeing is too many tutorials where you're seeing that an agent just suddenly came alive, but you don't have no idea as to what actually is happening under the hood. So let's have a look. We've got workspace-ink. Now this is where Inc. will now belong. And we have bootstrap.md, which is actually the first time that you speak to Inc. This is going to basically be the workflow where it will ask, who am I, where you give it its name, and that is how it identifies what its identity is and so forth. So now how do I actually chat to Inc? Well, you can do it in the actual terminal yourself. You can do it in the gateway, or the way that I think is easiest is just ask Neo to help your main agent to help you set up a Telegram. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to say, I need to set up a new Telegram chat for our new agent called Inc. So she needs her own bot and help me set that up. And now we're going to go ahead and run that. And it doesn't matter even if we got a typo here. Our agents are pretty clever. They're going to figure that out. Okay, so they came back and they asked us to create a new Telegram bot, send me the bot token, and it will wire up the OpenClaw as we need to, okay? So let's go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to go to bot father, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a new bot. So in this case, new bot, we're going to call it bot, underscore bot, give it whatever you want. It has to end in underscore bot. And then we have this hidden token. Obviously, you want to keep that super private, guys. Head back over to your main agent and give the token. Now it's going to go ahead and check if Inc. already exists. And in this case, you can see it's actually made a typo. But let's see if it's smart enough to figure out that there is Inc. Got a small but important thing. I only see the agents configured. I do not currently see agent called ink. So in this case, tell me what you want. So it was a typo using ink. So as you can see, you can basically just work with your OpenClaw to go ahead and get things set up. While that's happening, what I want you to do is go back to the bot folder, click on the Telegram me link, and you can start a new chat with Ink. And the first thing that I would always recommend to do is edit the details of the user. So in this case, go ahead, go to edit, and let's change them to actually be given a name. So you can copywriter, and in this case, just so I don't get confused, I'm gonna say copywriter demo and hit on done. Then you can see we have this message, right? Where it says OpenClaw access not configured. Ask the bot owner to approve with the OpenClaw pairing, right? So you can either run this in the terminal, or if you don't have the terminal running, you can basically just copy this message and give this to Neo. And Neo will run that himself. Now you can see he's now approving it. And in just a moment, if we did everything correct, we should see that we have a hi message from Ink. Something which it also did here, as you can see, it made both bots explicitly only allow our Telegram user ID. So this is something that you actually really want to do. It's called an allow list, where basically I can only say that, only I'm allowed to speak to these agents, or for example, Jay or someone else in the team, but you should always make it a closed loop so nobody else can chat to your agent besides you. Okay, and sometimes you might find you give them a little nudge and it helps out. But here you can see it's all good. Ink is now set up, new Telegram bot. Okay, let's go chat to Ink so we can say hello. We can see Ink is now typing. This is great. Now, chances are the first message is going to be something along the lines of, who am I, and so forth. There we go. Hey, Sonny, I just came online with zero context, no name, no vibe, no nothing. Can we sort that out together? Yep. So in this case, we can say, name is Ink, are a script writer, and your only job is to write amazing scripts. You can obviously go through, check it out. Okay, so while Ink is doing that, now what we're going to do is we're going to train Neo so that he understands that his job is to orchestrate. Let's go ahead and do that. Now your job is every single time that I ask you to create a new script, whether it be for YouTube, for Instagram, emails, whatever it might be that involves writing, we're going to be delegating that job to Ink. So now Ink is in charge of anything copywriting related. You're not to do those jobs yourselves. So there we have it. Let Neo do that. And as you can see, Ink is, there you go, scriptwriter mode locked in. Give me a bit more so I can, and this looks a little bit robotic, and chances are it's because the model, and as you can see, if I do / we get the models, you can see here, it was on 5.1 codecs, which in my opinion, not very great for this. So for now, I'm just going to change it to 5.4. But like I said, you can actually tinker the models, add new models and so forth, and actually have different models based on different agents. So I might not want or need my Ink agent to have a clever model, for example, okay? So this actually just changes it for this session only. But if you want to change it for everything, then the way we do that is we go ahead and say, also, I need Ink to be running on GPT 5.4 as her default model. We're going to go ahead and do that. And as you can see now, he's going to go ahead and delegate to Ink anytime a job comes in. I won't do those directly myself. Awesome. Now I want to show you while this is happening, you can see he's changing some default models. Again, it's always nice to go back into the files and see what's going on. So we go to OpenClaw. OpenClaw JSON is the one that you want to get really good at. Now, if we go down, we can see that we now have an agents list. So firstly, we have the channels where we have an allow list, and this is my ID alongside the bot tokens. And then if we go down, we have our agents list. So here we can see agents, and the default model for all agents is the GPT 5.4. And then we have the different models here as well that we support. Okay, and obviously you can just ask Neo or your agent to add those as you wish. Now in the list, we can see our different agents. This is our main agent, which is Neo. And then we have our second agent. And you can see by adding a simple model line, you can see that that will now mean that this agent will always use this model. Okay, and you can see they have their own workspace and their own agent directory. And you can get really granular with this. In fact, if you go to agents, what I really recommend you do is you go down to the docs in OpenClaw's docs, and you see here, they've got some really cool examples of how in different channels, for example, you can have different models kick off, right? So in this case, WhatsApp daily chat and Telegram deep work. So if I speak to it on WhatsApp, it'll be a lighter model. If I speak to it on Telegram, it'll be a much more smarter model. You can do things like that. You can also have a bunch of different setups, but most importantly, if you do worry about security, then I'd highly recommend you simply check out something called a sandbox, okay? And our sandboxes can be ran per agent or per user and so forth. You can really kind of lock things up with a sandbox. So feel free to check that out on your own time. Now, of course, we've set up our first agent, but what's actually the benefit and why did we need to do that? So as I mentioned previously, once you start using OpenClaw a lot more, you're going to run into a lot of issues where you have one agent, maybe have tons of different skills and tools, and they're going to start to make certain mistakes if you sort of bloat that agent out too much. And we also don't want huge amounts of tokens before we've even started a conversation because we have so many tools for that agent. So what you want to do is think of it in a way where we have Neo, or our main agent, who is responsible for orchestrating everything downward. And then every downward agent sort of in our team, like Ink, for example, is a specialized member. So Ink is going to be the queen of copywriting. Okay. So how can we actually make her an effective team member to do that well? Well, let's go ahead and have a look at how we can install skills just for Ink. So very popular website right now, skills.sh. If you go over here and we type in social, there's actually a very good one by Corey Haynes, marketing skill here. You can see social content. Now, this is a really good one because it basically helps Ink become a great writer. And this is just one example. Okay. You can obviously train your agents themselves and so on. And like I said, remember, we set up that Telegram for a reason, right? Because now you can go in here and just speak directly to Ink if you need to, right? You can even have group chats where all of them are inside and so forth. We're not going to get into that today, but drop a comment if you want me to cover that. And then, okay, so back to the skill. If we go ahead and copy this right here, you can either run that yourself, but you might risk not doing it correctly. So easiest way is honestly just copy this page or copy this command. In this case, copy the command is the easiest. Go over to Neo and simply go ahead and say, install this skill for Ink only. Okay. Now, if we go ahead and run that, Neo's going to start installing this. Now, if we dive into the backend, what we can see is on this top level, right, we should have a skills folder. Right now, we don't have any skills installed. But when we have the skill installed for Ink, what we will see is a skill folder will pop up in here. Now, because it's underneath the workspace-ink folder, that means that skill is specifically only for Ink. So Neo actually doesn't know what that skill is. And this is good for a few reasons, because skills are great, right? They allow us to level up our agents. For example, they're going to be supercharged with all of this knowledge now. But if we give our agent, let's say 100 different skills, it's now going to have a higher chance of making the wrong decision in which skill to pick and apply. And then you're going to get some outcomes that you just didn't want. Now, while that's loading, I want you to come down to the multi-agent routing docs. And here you can see that skills are per agent by each workspace skill folder. Okay. And then you can also have shared skills by having them in the top layer, right? So this is the top layer skills folder. So you can go ahead and read this for yourselves, but basically it's going to go ahead and describe, like, you might want sometimes a generic skill. For example, a tone of voice could be handy in copywriting, but it could also be handy for our main agent to understand our tone of voice. Maybe we want to write some copy for a coding page, and our coding agent, instead of having to go back and forth between Ink, it should be able to also know our tone of voice. So there you might want a shared skill that should be in the top level at OpenClaw/skills. Okay, so heading back over, you can see Neo had a bit of trouble installing, so he just went ahead and put it inside the skills folder. Well, let's go ahead and see if it works, right? So if we go over to skills, we should see that we have got the social content, and that's actually correct. And you can see this stuff is really quite simple, right? It's just folders with MD files inside of, and then we typically have a reference if it's needed, okay? But if we go into skill.md, every single skill has a name and a description. And then when we ask that agent a question, it's going to be able to pull in all of its name and descriptions for skills, but not the rest of it. So it doesn't bloat the context. But then what's handy is if it matches this description, only then will it pull in the rest of the skill and then use it. Okay, so let's put this to the test. And we now have our first ever multi-team workflow. I'm going to go ahead and do a /new. Okay, so we have a new session started. Let's go ahead and test this out. Now, the first thing before we go ahead and do this is we have to understand that the way that OpenClaw works is it has two ways of routing. It either has sub-agents or multi-agent routing. Now, multi-agent routing uses something called bindings. Now, if we go to agent, multi-agent routing over here, go down, you can see basically bindings are based on if we want to target a specific channel or whatnot, or you can even have it so there's something called agent to agent chat, so they can actually speak to each other. So that way their full brains are working and talking towards each other. This is one way, but trust me, it gets very complicated and most people don't actually need to even do this. So what we're going to be using today is something called sub-agents. Okay, so in this case, these are called sub-agents. And there's actually a lot of confusion online where a lot of tutorials are actually teaching sub-agents without realizing that they're teaching sub-agents. Okay, so the way that it works is basically, if we come back here, if I speak to the individual agent, this is the complete agent, right? This is not a sub-agent. If we go ahead and actually have Neo orchestrate everything, however, chances are he will spin up a sub-agent. So let's make this quite explicit here. when I speak to you, Neo, if I ask for any copywriting task or anything like that, you will spin up a sub-agent for Ink to then go ahead and carry out the tasks that we need. And then what it does is it spins up something called a sub-agent, and that is effectively Ink in all of her environments, all of her memory, her soul, everything like that, to go ahead and then handle that specific task. And then effectively the sub-agent by default will die, giving back the response to Neo, and then he gives it back to us. And then every time it starts up, we have like a fresh Ink instance. Okay, let's go ahead and start this off. If you want me to go ahead and show how to do multi-agent writing, just drop a comment down below. I'll shoot a video about all of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how it does by giving it its first task. So we're going to go ahead and speak to Neo, and Neo's going to create a sub-agent spinning up Ink. I want you to create an Instagram post talking about multi-agent workflows and how that is revolutionary versus one agent. Now let's wait for Neo to push the message over to Ink, get Ink's response, and come back and let's see what they say. As you can see, handing this to Ink, I'll get you a caption that sells the multi-agent is greater than one agent angle properly. And there we have it. It came back. Ink came back with 3 strong options. You can see how Ink did the job, not Neo. We can see one AI agent is cute. A team of AI agents is a cheat code. Most people are still using AI like it's one intern. Smart prompt in, answer out, and so forth. And then you've got the 2, like they've given us 3 different examples. Now the fact it's given us 3 different examples tells me that it uses the skill, because the skill part of it says give 3 different outputs when you ask for a post. So this is pretty awesome, okay? And this is great because if I now asked, now Neo, I want to perform a test. I want you to write an Instagram post about the same topic. You cannot use any of Ink's stuff put previously. I want you yourself to write that. And we should be able to see a vast difference between the 2. Okay, and as you can see, it came back. And again, it's not going to be a terrible post. Like in this case, Instagram post, everyone's supposed to find the perfect AI agent. I think that's the wrong goal. The real breakdown is not only one super agent doing everything, but the difference is in that skill, they talk about how to get to the point a lot faster and basically give the win a lot earlier. So you can see it's quite a long time before we get to the point of value in this instance. Right. And also it only gave me 1 version versus 3 different versions. So very, very simple example, but you can see that there is a difference between Ink writing it versus Neo writing it. And of course, the more you go ahead and evolve this, the more better each is going to become. Now let's talk about a couple of do's and don'ts when you're creating agents for your OpenClaw setup. Number 1, give your main agent, so in my instance, Neo, a strong model. If you give them a weak model, they're going to be performing terribly, and especially if they're doing high level stuff like orchestrating for other agents. This is obviously a simple example that we've done today. However, in my own AI team, I have 8. Neo orchestrates so much. It's absolutely awesome. And he's able to do that really powerful because I have him running on Opus 4.6. Just know that if you do decrease the model strength, you're going to start to see things mess up a little bit more because it's not going to be able to handle as much as a stronger model would. Number 2, make sure that if you don't need the most powerful model for the other agents, for example, in this case, Ink, then downgrade their model, because you don't actually need the most expensive model to get a pretty good outcome that is probably better than most people expect. So in this instance, let's say I created another agent, I would not be giving it GPT 5.4. I'd probably give it GPT 5.3 codex, or if I'm doing a lot of coding stuff, I'd give it Opus 4.6. And then in my own setup, my Ink agent has Sonnet, which is a Claude model 4.6. which is obviously cheaper than Opus 4.6, which Neo runs on. So as you can see, you can mix and match these to be beneficial to your setup. And one of the biggest things that you're probably thinking is a good idea, but I promise you it's not, is do not go and create 10 to 20 different agents off the bat. Only introduce them as you hit friction points. Trust me when I say this. Think of every single agent as a brand new employee into your team. Speak to them as if they're a brand new employee in your team. When you're inside of the Telegram chat and you're training that agent, give it examples of what was good and what was bad and tell it to save and remember that. If you don't speak to it in this kind of growing feedback loop approach, it's just going to be as stupid. Remember, LLMs are trash in, trash out, right? So if you give it a lot of rubbish, they're going to just give you more rubbish as output. So you're better off introducing one agent as you need it, train it so it actually becomes quite effective and useful for you, and then go ahead and start to increase the complexity as and when you need it. I didn't start off with 8 agents. It was slowly something that grew over time. And most importantly, remember, I can speak to these guys at any time of day because they're running 24/7. How? Because we have them running on a VPS. So as I mentioned before, if you want to go ahead and get started, just simply hit the link down below, or it's on the screen right now, and you can set up your entire VPS setup. And don't forget, of course, to use code Sonny to get some extra cash off. Because if you had these running locally on, let's say, a laptop that you had on the side, if that laptop ever died, it's going to make sure that you can't speak to any of your agents because it's not online. Whereas VPS, on the other hand, will stay up 24/7. And of course, this was more of a simple demo today as to how you can add one agent, and then you can keep on adding as many as you want based on what we talked about. But here's an example of my own team that we have up and running. And as you can see, if you want to know how to have this, where you can have separate topics, lots of stuff happening, then go ahead and check out the link in the description and join my upcoming community. We have a huge wait list of people wanting to join right now, where I'm going to go ahead and teach you how to get all of this kind of flow up and running so you can have your own complete AI agent team. I effectively have 8 employees working for me full time, and it has changed the entire way that I run my entire business. And there we have it, guys. You can now start building your own AI agent team with OpenClaw. And remember, a golden rule: never ever run this on your main machine. The video where I showed you how to set everything up showed you how to set it up on a VPS in a secure way. This not only keeps you safe and secure, but it also means that they run 24/7. And that's why I keep recommending so many people to hosting it, because you don't have to be a technical genius to set up your OpenClaw instance on a VPS server. It's literally a couple of clicks. And the benefit with a VPS, you don't need to worry about buying a Mac Mini, setting all that up, or having that. It's complete overkill for most of you guys out there. So if you want to go ahead and get started building your first AI agent team, check out the first link in the description, and don't forget to use code Sonny to save yourself a bunch of cash. And remember the golden rules, guys. Start with one agent, master it, fill the pain points, and then begin to grow. Don't start adding 20 different agents to your team. It's going to be more headache than it's ever worth. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to smash the like button and drop a comment right now letting me know what else you want to know about my OpenClaw setup, or what OpenClaw tutorial you want me to make next. As always, guys, it's your boy Sonny, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.